It's my pleasure to bring up right now. You know him. He's a trainer. He's an activist. He's going to share a lot about the world with you today, plant-based living, but beyond, way beyond that. And it's my pleasure to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, for your listening pleasure, Mr. JP. Give him a nice hand. John Pierre. Great hand.
Hello, everybody. Have you guys been having fun? How many of you been to morning exercise, boot camp? Yoga, dance? Okay, good. Remember what I said the other day? We want to take you to the next level. So it's very important that you push yourself a little bit, and when you go home, continue on with, you've been eating really clean for a couple days. You want to carry that on. Many of you have been exercising when you haven't exercised before. Carry that on. So that's really important. Some of you who are my private clients, you know that one of the things that I teach is not just nutrition and fitness. It's not just love and compassion, but it's about the environment and the planet. And this is what I want to talk about today, because when I became vegan in around 1983, I personally did it for ethical reasons. I was concerned about the planet and I was concerned about the animals. We didn't know very much about the nutritional aspect back then, 1983. We knew some, but not like the science today. So for me, it was really an ethical thing. The two oral reports that I did in high school, senior year, when I was graduating, were women's rights, and then I did a lecture on animal rights. So jump forward to now, to 2019, my first book, The Pillars of Health, is basically on nutrition and fitness and love and compassion. And my second book, Strong, Savvy, Safe, is about women's empowerment and safety. So I'm doing the same stuff that I've been doing since high school. So I really haven't changed that much. Our organization, as you'll see here, is very important to me because it instills all the concepts. This is my co-founder, Andrea Rose, and our organization is Living with Harmony. And this is really critical to us because our mission is exactly this, to heal, inspire, and transform the lives of not only people. People are important, but so are animals and the planet through, and make sure you remember this, planet-based living. Not plant, but planet. Plant-based is generally a diet, where planet-based denotes the whole environment and animals and all the species and living. So it's a way to live. And as I've said from day one, for all the clients that work with me, I don't just work on nutrition. That's such a small portion, and fitness is a small portion. Many of you who've done consults with me have seen we didn't even talk about nutrition because most of you don't even need that. You've got the basics here. So take a look at this. This is what is important to us. Planet-based living is a lifestyle made up of conscientious. That's important because in our world today, there's not a lot of conscientious choices, and actions. Lots of us can be conscientious, but are we taking actions on that? For the wellness of self, which is important, but sentient beings, and then of course the planet. Too many of us, when we get into this movement, it's fine at first you focus on yourself, me, 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 but eventually we want it to be we. We just don't want it to be self-focused. When somebody has heart disease or diabetes or needs, they need to lose 100 pounds, I understand it. But as time goes on, we need to spread that love to other people and then to other beings and then, of course, the planet. And here's exactly why. When you start looking at the devastation that's occurring in our planet today, it's very scary. Imagine if that was a child, okay? Forget being orangutan, but if you saw a child that was abandoned or alone and scared. This is what we're starting to see on the planet today, this devastation. You've seen it already in the news with the Amazon. You've seen what's been going out there in Brazil. You've seen the devastation. Remember, what you do to Mother Earth then does to you. And doesn't do it intentionally. It's just if you hurt yourself, you get damaged. Well, when you hurt the planet that you live on and you rely on, well, then you hurt yourself. So if you eat healthy and exercise and you meditate for you, that's wonderful. But if you screw the planet up, you're hurting yourself. Take a look at this planet, what we've turned our beautiful planet in, from when it was first here to what it looks like today. I mean, this is unimaginable what human beings are doing to the planet today. I mean, the amount of waste and disrespect that we have to Mother Nature is abhorring. I mean, it's just one of these things that it's hard to sleep at night when I think about the damage that's occurring in the planet. When you eat plant-based, again, you're thinking about yourself, but I want you to think about this for a second. When you think about planet-based living, then we start thinking about, what are we doing here? What are we spraying on crops? What type of fertilizers? When you hear the words pesticide, suicide, genocide, homicide, what do they all mean? They mean death. So not only when we have productions where we have hundreds and millions of gallons of pesticides being poured not only on our food, but that going into the earth, destroying the microorganisms, poisoning insects, and then birds come and eat that insect, and then a bird dies, and a fox or a coyote comes and eats that. It's this karmic chain of devastation. I mean, it's just is everywhere. This is scary stuff. The people who have some of the highest rates of disease in the world are people who are applying pesticides. I mean, think about this. These people are wearing hazmat suits. I mean, this is scary. We have such a high rate of infertility today. And when you're talking about weight loss, let's say you care only about weight loss. These are endocrine disruptors. They disrupt your endocrine system. And they're finding and they're linking more and more pesticides and endocrine disruptors and the components that are in plastic to obesity because it's messing up our hormonal level. So we need to start thinking about the choices that we make can no longer just be about directly for us. When you buy anything, how did that product get to you? How did that product get to you? It has to get transported unless it's locally grown, and most people aren't buying locally grown. So there's a lot of pollution that gets created in transportation. And when any of these barges that are carrying things, if they ever collapse or they have damage and they dump into the ocean, oh my God, millions and millions of pounds of junk goes back into our ocean. And once the oceans go, we go. Think about transportation with just trucks having to transport everything. I mean, more and more pollution, more and more damage to the environment, more and more cars and trucks on the railroad. And you got railroad, you've got planes, you got everything that's polluting the environment because we're not eating enough foods that are locally grown, not enough stuff that's in our community. We're getting everything from overseas. And this is what happens to nature. Nature thinks it's time that maybe she should collapse. How much more abuse can nature take? I mean, it's like anything else. I've worked with abused women for 30 years. There comes a point where somebody can no longer take the abuse and they've had enough devastation done to them that they collapse. They can't handle it anymore. And that is what the scientists have been saying for the last couple years. We're on the brink of collapse with what's happening to our environment. If you've been into any of my lectures or you've worked with me, the whole component of everything that I teach is ahimsa, a Sanskrit term meaning compassion and love and reverence for all beings. And that includes the planet. When you have this love and respect inside of you, that's gonna basically shine everywhere you go. Every choice you make is gonna be a choice of love and compassion. It's very easy for me to make decisions in life because I base all my decisions on love and compassion. And I know there's a karmic chain of everything that we do. So when I hold the door open for you, when I give you a present, when I buy you something, when I watch out for you, like this morning, when we were leaving the hotel, the room, I said it's important that we take the sheets off the bed, take the sheets off the pillowcases, put that in a nice little pile so the house cleaning staff has something done for them nice today. We just always want to be thinking with reverence in our mind, just constantly having reverence for not only ourselves, but for others. Now, I get it. When you first start, you got to have just reverence for yourself. That's a hard thing. But as time goes on and you develop more love and light and compassion in your being, that light is going to shed everywhere you go. So it's going to be all your actions and all your thoughts. So let's go over, Living with Harmony has some different categories that we would like to deal with. Obviously, consumerism is one, and that's one that everybody partakes in is consumerism. Our food, we have to start being conscientious of our food, where it comes from, how did it get here, what are the ramifications of buying that food. Travel, oh my gosh, that's a huge one, and that's the one that I need the most work on because I travel constantly. So I'm very conscientious of my travel, and what I do is I make sure that I make sure these other categories I'm a 10 at because I know travel is a big one for me. Our home, you're going to see how there's a lot of things we can do at home. And of course, activism is critical. Activism has been my life since I've been a kid. So let's go through some of these right now. So we have the planet-based consumerism. Let's take a look at this right now when you start thinking about some simple things that we can do. Right now, we're just using so many disposable items. Everything that we get is disposable. And you know, 1985, I went to a lecture by Dr. Michael Clapper at the National Alliance for Animal Conference. And I had just been vegan, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years then. And one thing I loved about Dr. Clapper is that he is not only a medical doctor, but he's an environmentalist. And that's what I really loved. And Dr. Clapper said something very interesting once. He said, when you throw something away, where is away? So I want you to think about that when you look at these items here. How easy is it for you to replace these items with items that you have? Plastic straws, I mean, come on. When I go to Florida and I go to the sea hospitals and I'm looking at the animals that are in the hospital there, and you see turtles that have to have surgically removed straws from their nose. I mean, this is ridiculous. Every restaurant you go and you sit down and they've already put straws in all your water. We don't need that. There's glass straws and there's stainless steel straws or no straws. I mean, do we really need straws? I mean, seriously. When you look at anything with plastic cutlery, this is the easiest thing in the world. You can go and buy bamboo cutlery if you want, and that's kind of the hip thing. But you know what I do? I just take my silverware from my house and I put it in my backpack. So when I travel here, guess what I'm using? That's what I'm using. If I go to Whole Foods or somewhere, or if you go somewhere there's a salad bar, you don't need to get the plastic. You have your own silverware with you. It's pretty easy. This is my biggest pet peeve, I would say, is plastic water bottles. Because look, here's my water bottle. This will give me 100 gallons of pure water. It takes out all the basics, the mercury, the chlorine, the fluoride, cryptosporidium, giardia, birth control, psychiatric meds. Pretty good, huh? Now, I'm traveling all the time. Average, I would drink 2 bottles of water on one flight and 2 on another coming back. That's a lot of plastic. All I have to do is use my water bottle here, and I don't need plastic. Because again, when you throw something away, where is away? On my garbage can in my place, I have a sign that says that. Because every time I open that garbage, I want to be conscientious of what I'm throwing away. I want to remind myself that that's going somewhere, okay? So obviously the others are basics, the coffee cups. I would say the shopping and produce bags is probably maybe my biggest pet peeve. There's no reason that you need to be going into a store, pulling off that plastic bag and then sticking your lettuce in there, because all you have to do is bring your own bag, your own nylon bags. Or get this, I could just take the lettuce and put it on the conveyor belt, and people say it's dirty. Where's that lettuce been? Don't you think it's dirty? Do you think it was carried by monks down from the Himalayas? I mean, come on, it's dirty lettuce. I hope you wash it. Do you really need that plastic bag? Start thinking in terms of reverence, in terms of waste. Many of you have had parents or grandparents from the Depression. You've learned that these folks are amazing because they didn't waste anything. So let's just start thinking in terms of when we buy something, what am I going to do with that when I'm done with it? What am I doing with that? I'm going to throw it away, but that away is somebody's backyard. So think about that. Okay, so here's some suggestions that we have. It's so funny because I recently just brought a projector. And you know I know nothing about computers or anything, but living with Harmony, we couldn't get one to borrow. And as soon as we got the projector, the first thing I did is call as many people as I could in my area. And I said, hey, we have a projector. Would you like to borrow it? Don't buy one. We have one. So we need to start thinking about when you purchase things, can you share them with other people? I mean, do you really think if you live on a block and there's 14 houses that everybody needs a lawnmower? I mean, couldn't we share lawnmowers? Couldn't we share some tools? Can't we share some things? Does everybody have to have their own? I mean, it's so wasteful. It's just so wasteful to do that. And obviously, the refusing the single-use plastic, that's huge. Do your very best when you see plastic to get the heck out of there and run. It's something we have to train ourselves to do because we're not used to it. But you'll see in a minute why it's important. Cloth bags are critical. I mean, I buy them and get them by the dozen. So I always have cloth bags with me everywhere I go to put my produce in. Travel mugs and food containers. I travel here in my hotel. I have the glass containers. So I brought my food in there. I brought my sprouts and my cucumbers, and I brought my tempeh, and I brought some other foods with me. So I travel with my foods all the time, and I bring my glass containers. Is it a little heavy? Yeah. But I love seeing the glass, and I love eating out of glass or stainless steel. I don't want to use plastic ever. So the idea is to buy less and use less. Everything that I have clothing-wise, other than the basics, underwear and socks, I get pretty much at a thrift store. Unless it's a love or compassion shirt and I want to support a vendor who sells organic cotton, organic hemp, I'll buy it. But almost everything else I buy in thrift stores. So I go to thrift stores for much everything. I've found beautiful dehydrators there, beautiful juicers. $10 for a dehydrator. $10 for a juicer that doesn't look like it's ever been used. Do I really need to go pay $250 for a new juicer? It's just silly. It's just silly. It's like exercise gear. Same thing, how many people have all these exercise gears around their house, and I go to their house and they use it as a clothes rack, right? They don't even use it. It's unbelievable. I'd rather just pay for a gym membership and not have to have all that exercise stuff in my place. Okay, now here's where we get to the food one. Now, most of you are pretty good with this. You understand this stuff here. We know that a meat-based diet is absolutely detrimental. If you just think about the water being used to produce cows and chickens and pigs, the amount of water that they have to consume, but how much water do you have to grow the crops that they ate? And then what happens after a cow or a pig eats? Where does that fecal matter go? Millions of gallons of fecal matter going back into the earth. Millions of gallons. Millions. Polluting our waterways. And here's the sad news. These animals are being laced up with antibiotics, hormones, arsenic, drugs, and they excrete some of that into the waterways, and whammo, all of a sudden we're drinking those things. Scary stuff. You talk about endocrine disruptors. My God, this is something we need to take a closer look at. So most of us are pretty good in terms of we know that a meat-based diet is not healthy for the environment, not healthy for the planet. You know that the land that is needed is embarrassing, how much land. And I've been on private jets before with people who own slaughterhouses, okay, making a documentary. Nobody could argue with this particular person, right? Nobody would even argue. He knew a lot. And I just said to him gently, I said, because he's a smart guy with numbers. I said, well, it takes about 12 to 15 pounds of grain, feed a cow, and that cow will produce a 1-pound burger. And he's looking up and he's calculating, and he goes, yeah, you're right. I said, well, does that seem very efficient to give 15 pounds of grain that people could be eating around the world, and the cow's going to give you your 1-pound burger? Do you know how much water, transportation, drugs, how much waste is in that? It's unbelievable. And most of us as vegans, we kind of know that. We know, hey, look at, we're vegan for the environment and the animals. We get that, but I got news for you. Vegans aren't exempt. So we don't get to be exempt as vegans, and definitely we don't get to be exempt in UWL for sure. We don't get to do that because you know where many of us go routinely, and I'm not anything against it because I do go there too, but we go here, Plastic Joe's, right? How many people shop at Plastic Joe's? Because I shop there, but I shop discriminately. Look at Plastic Joe's. Everything's wrapped in plastic. Now, my question to you here is I just want you to think about this. Just think about it. Where is all those plastic wrappings going? I mean, honestly, where are they going? It's being thrown away, and where is away? Now, I can just go to another store, right? And I don't have to have things wrapped in plastic. I don't want plastic touching the food, that contamination, and I definitely 100% do not want that plastic in the environment. I don't want that karmic chain. Under no circumstance do I want that karmic chain of that plastic going into the ocean or into a landfill or into an animal's stomach. So it's pretty simple. We love Trader Joe's Cruciferous Crunch, don't we? So Amber Kowalski made this beautiful slide for me, so thank you, Amber. And look how easy it is to make your own. It's not very hard. And how many people heard my lecture on focus the other day? Remember what I said about chopping vegetables? 10 times better than your 30-minute meditation in the morning. Nothing against that. But those chopping that vegetables, preparing that, grating it, that is not only meditation, but that is one of the healthiest things that you can do by having a connection with your food. We don't have enough connection anymore to ourselves, for sure. Barely any connection with our food. And surely, since we practice not connecting, we're not going to connect with other people. So we're disconnected from everything. Taking food and preparing it yourself is connecting. Okay? When you go to Plastic Joe's, everything here is in plastic, and this is all I need to do. I'll use common sense because I'm going to save money, right? I'm going to save money here. But all I do is just get my own produce bag. Right? And I'm going to just go to the store and buy my lettuce, put it in my produce bag, and they're going to weigh it. And that's it. And then I reuse my produce bag. I don't have any waste. There's nothing there. And here's why. And I want you guys to get scared. I want you to get angry. I want you to get upset. This is scary stuff. That 1% of plastic bags are recycled. This is scary. Where are they going if they're not being recycled? Let me tell you, the biggest scam out is recycling. When I used to volunteer at a high school, not only did I train coaches and athletes, but I worked with the people who I wanted to work with the most, the janitors. Because these janitors were in hall closets, mixing chemicals, breathing these contaminants, just having a very poor environment for their health. So I used to work with them. They got to know me well, and they start confiding in me. And I said, hey, one thing I really love about our school, because I went to school here, is that I said, I really love that we recycle here, and I see these recycling bins everywhere. I said, I'm so proud of this. And they said, JP, we don't recycle. And I said, well, no, it's all the recycling bins. They said, we throw all that out. We just tell the kids we recycle. I said, you're telling me year after year after year, every time the kid hits the Coca-Cola and the Pepsi plastic bottle and they put it in the recycling bin, that's not being recycled? No. It's a myth, gang. We're done recycling. Thank you so much, Angelica, for this beautiful slide that you made for Living with Harmony. I want you to remember this. When you go to put your stuff in the trash can or you go to put it in your recycling bin, it's not really going there. Here's the question to ask yourself. Is that your plastic bag floating in the ocean? Is that your plastic bag floating in the river? I don't know. It may be somebody's in this room. That may be your plastic bag. But I got news for you, gang. Watch this next slide and watch it carefully. And then just hold on to your seat because it's not fun. Because you see the difference, but a turtle doesn't. So when this plastic gets inside the ocean, and I've been to these sea hospitals, I've seen this stuff. Looks like jellyfish. Looks like fish will just attack it. If you know people who are fishermen, they use a lure, right? A plastic lure. Do fish attack that lure because they think it's something they eat? Yeah, and then they get a hook in the mouth and they're dead. Fish don't know the difference. Turtles don't know the difference what's floating. These turtles are getting destroyed constantly because they see the plastic and they start attacking and eating it. The question you want to ask yourself right now, is that your plastic bag? Don't say no, because once you throw it away, you've lost control of where it goes. So it's your responsibility to be a good steward of the environment and humanity, to be conscious of your choices, because everybody's choices can have repercussions. And we need to be conscientious of that. Unless you just want to go live through life frivolously and not care about anything or anybody or the karmic trail that you're leaving. But that's a legacy you're leaving for your children and your grandchildren. So every time you go to the store, think about it. Do I really need to buy my hummus in a plastic container? There's something really cool, and it's called a blender. And what you do is you make your beans in an Instant Pot, or if you buy canned beans, and guess what? You make your own hummus. You make your own hummus, and you have control of the hummus, and you don't have any waste then. This person does it. She does a good job of making hummus. So it's important that you guys understand this, that we need to start looking at some of this stuff, because this is so important that plastic, people think it's being recycled. It's not. Think about when you buy plastic, it's just being dumped, okay? Stop thinking about it's being recycled. That's a great myth. If you look at Asia and China, they're not buying, they don't want our recycling anymore. They're not taking it anymore. The United States is panicking. Other countries are panicking. What are we going to do with all the waste? Yeah, maybe you should have thought about that a long time ago. Now you're putting more stress and strain on the environment. They don't want our products anymore. They have enough. So much of the times we cross-contaminate our recycling with other foods and garbage in there, and it messes up the whole recycling system. And so they don't want it anymore. So we're in big trouble now. So not only is there challenges with the plastic and things that we do as vegans and UWL, we're a big problem is with plastic in our movement, especially with all the plastic lettuces and stuff. So I want you to think about that. But in the general vegan community, this next couple slides might not relate, you might not be able to relate to personally, but your family and friends and the rest of the vegan community can. I want you to start thinking about almonds. Everywhere you go, we hear talk about almonds. And you know what? I've eaten almonds. I don't really eat them now, but I don't discourage nut eating. But how many people today eat almonds? Almond cheese, almond milk, almonds in general, sprouted almonds, right? Not a problem. But I want you to just think about these statistics now. And the one I really want you to focus on is the water, okay? I want you to think about the water. I mean, first of all, I'm an ethical vegan, so I'm not going to take 1.6 billion, million here. These hives, 1.6 million hives, have to be transported across the country to California. I'm not part of that. It's like honey. I don't want to be part of it. I want those insects to live their own life. I don't want to be part of any confinement to them at all. But what I'm really concerned with also is just to produce those 2 billion pounds is requiring 1.1 trillion gallons of water in a state that's in a water crisis. It's a desert almost. How much water is going to just make our almonds? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So we have the almonds, we have the almond cheese, the almond yogurt, the almond butter, the almond milk, all that stuff. I'm not saying these things are bad, but I'm just saying we need to start thinking about there's repercussions when we buy things. We just need to understand that. There's repercussions. You've seen what's happening in Brazil. I mean, this is the palm oil industry. Thank God we don't eat palm oil here, but lots of your cosmetics have palm oil. And this is really sad that who wants to take a bulldozer in the Amazon and spend all that money when let's just light it up. Let's just burn that mother down. Mother Earth is just going to get destroyed. We're not going to take bulldozers and spend money and land power. It's going to light it up. And then what happens? Uh-oh. Not only is the land gone in the pollution, but now these animals become displaced. Displaced animals. They lose their mom, they lose their dad, they lose their brother, they lose their sister, and most importantly too, they lose their home. I mean, where does this little family go? Where do these guys go when their home's displaced? You've seen fires, what they've done to devastating people in Santa Rosa. People lose their entire homes. It's devastating. Well, why are these animals any different? They're no different. So I want you to start thinking about that. You don't use palm oil, but your family may. People use vegan butters that are predominantly palm oil, right? It's in our cosmetics and shampoos, so make it your business to call companies and ask, and then find alternatives to palm oil. Say, you know, it's too bad that you, and I do this all the time as an activist, I call companies and say, I really would love to buy your product, but it's got palm oil, and I'm more conscientious about the environment, and I'm more conscientious about animals and insects, so I don't want my dollar to vote for that. So when you have a palm oil-free product, then I'll support that. Now, there's a lot of other things we don't know about, and I'm not going to get into too much detail. But when they do grow lots of these fruits, and remember, most of our bananas are not coming from Florida or Hawaii, right? So when we go to Costa Rica and so forth, and there's a lot of waste. There's dozens of different pesticides they use to keep tarantulas and bugs off. They wrap them in plastic, and these plastic bags often end up into the environment and the ocean, and end up in the oceans eventually. So we need to be conscientious of that. If you're going to buy bananas, try to buy fair trade organic bananas. Do your very best to do that versus conventional. Not only is it healthier for you, but it's healthier for the planet. Be conscientious of out-of-season and exotic produce. Not only do they often have unregulated pesticides, but these things are being transported across the country again. So what I do is I go to farmers markets and I'll buy 20 pounds of organic blueberries at a time, and guess what I do with them? Yeah, I freeze them. So when this blueberry season is over, it's not over for me. I just open up my freezer, right? So I'm using blueberries, or I'll buy local peaches in Colorado. I dehydrate them or I freeze them. So guess what? When it's winter, I don't have to go to the health food store and buy peaches and cantaloupe or whatever from another country. I already have locally grown. I supported my locally grown vendors who are organic, and I don't waste. Now, when I go buy my blueberries at the farmer's market, I don't buy any blueberries that are in plastic. I have to see compostable containers. If they don't have compostable, I'll go up to them, and I love to buy your blueberries. I love these. They're organic, but they're in plastic. And so I go to the vendors who have them in compost. Does that make sense? Okay. Now let's go through some of this living, planet-based living. So bulk, I buy pretty much everything in bulk. So when I buy beans, I want to buy it in bulk. If I buy nuts or seeds like flaxseed, I want to buy it in bulk. Pretty much everything I want to buy in bulk. I'm not going to use plastic for sure. I don't buy plastics, cellophane or styrofoam. I definitely am always going to support these farmers markets. This is really important. We have to support locally grown things. Locally grown stuff is critical. This is important to support these people that are in an environment. I love talking. I'll spend a half hour at a farmer's market just talking to the farmer, finding out their practices, seeing if I could take a tour, and then I'll approach them and seeing, can I buy in bulk also? Not only does it save money, but if I buy, say, a case of cucumbers, right? I have a whole case of them. So, and I can juice them or I can dehydrate them, whatever. This is important, to place the emphasis on whole plant-based foods rather than processed or packaged foods. Most of us do that here, but the vegan community does not. You'll get your package that's in a box, and then it's wrapped in plastic then again. And there might be another tray in there too. So we want to avoid that. Easily affordable way for the environment is to dehydrate or freeze local produce. Do you remember in the old days when people used to can? I mean, Shada was just came over, and I was showing her how I dehydrate fruit. So I'll go get fruit at the farmer's market, and then I just dehydrate it for maybe 8 to 12 hours, and then I put it in a glass container, and then I store it away. So I can dehydrate blueberries, just tray after tray after tray after tray, and then I just put them in my glass container, and guess what? I can eat them that way, or to rehydrate them, all I do is soak them in cold water, and guess what? It looks just like regular blueberries. I do that all the time. So that's really important to get back to the old days of canning, freezing, and then dehydrating things. It's so good for the environment because you're buying your local produce, and then in winter, you don't have to go and order stuff from Costa Rica. That make sense? Okay. All right, so here's one of my things that I am not perfect at, and I'm working on it, and I think about it 24/7, so I overcompensate with everything else and make sure everything else is perfect as I can be. So this planet, we got to be careful with it because we've got to look at all the cars and pollution that cars are producing. How many animals and insects are killed on these highways? How many people get hurt? So for me personally, I bike or I walk as much as possible. When I'm out of town, I generally will find out where I have to go. And like now, if I'm working with a client, I'll generally walk there or I'll bike there or I'll maybe try to carpool or, of course, I could take an Uber. So we want to make sure that you're conscientious of that. Carpooling is important. Here's mine that I'm not really good at yet, is a reduced flying. And, that's one that I have to, I don't think the right term is rationalize, but I have to basically say I'm going to be in front of an audience of 200, 300 people, 1,000, whatever. By me flying here, hopefully I can get this message out to 300 or 400 people, and maybe they're filming it. That information will get out. So will that displace my carbon footprint? I have to think about that because I don't enjoy flying at all. I really don't. And one of the things I do when I'm on a plane is I do some interesting things. Even though I don't want it, I'll ask the flight attendant, do you guys have soy milk? And they'll usually say, soy milk? And they'll ask me, and I'll say, well, you've heard all about the problems with milk, right? And then I'll go into a little thing, and everyone listens. Or I'll say, do you guys recycle the cans? And I make sure I say it loud. And if they say no, I say, oh, thanks, I don't want it. I'll stay dehydrated. That's okay. I don't want to mess up the environment. So I just make sure subliminally that little message goes out there because travel has a lot of consequences. And here's the big one, say no to cruises. I know many of you go on cruises, but let's see, why do I say no to cruises? I want you to check out that fine number, that number there. When you start thinking about an industry that gets fined $40 million and doesn't blink an eyelash at that, because they illegally dumped not only waste and plastic and everything else into the ocean, and they don't think nothing of it. That's okay. I mean, that's not a lot of money. We make billions of dollars. You need to be conscientious when you travel because these are moving cities. This is a moving city, a cruise line, and there's a lot of damage that occurs. And one thing that people don't think about with cruises, and I'm fortunate because I know some scientists that are acoustic scientists, and they're experts in sonar. And the one thing they've told me is, JP, you can't believe how these large boats are messing up all these animals' sonar systems. Just disaster for them. Not to mention the pollution that's created here, but what about all the waste? And you've seen many of these undercover videos where these people are working on the deck and heaving plastic bags into the ocean of all the waste. So I want you to think about that because, I'm not picking on any particular cruise line, but I'm just saying think about when you travel. I have to admit, 20-something years ago, I went on a cruise before I understood that, but I'm very conscientious of it now. Obviously I don't support. I've been asked to go on all the vegan cruises and all those things. I just don't. Now let's do one that's easy to control, which is home. This is one of my favorite things because this is easy to do. I love this stuff here. Let's start replacing some of our stuff. Your plastic toothbrush, you're changing hopefully 3 times a year. When you throw that plastic toothbrush away, where does it go? It goes away. All you have to do is spend 50 cents more to get a bamboo toothbrush. And it's compostable, goes back into the earth. So that bamboo goes right into the earth. Dental floss, I get my dental floss here. I love this company. It's in glass, so it's a glass container. And then when I'm done using the dental floss, I get a refill and I just put it back in the container. So I never have to throw out that plastic container because when I throw that plastic away, it goes away. The toilet paper, I buy my toilet paper that's wrapped in plastic. So I don't buy the big 20 at a time wrapped in plastic, because that plastic is going somewhere. So I'd rather use the one that's wrapped in paper. And then here's what I do with the paper. I take the paper after you unroll it, and it looks pretty big. I put it in my small compost container. And then when I pour liquid or anything in there, it's perfect. It holds it nice. Or guess what you can do with it? There's a company that makes really beautiful, colorful toilet paper, and you can wrap gifts with it. So it's a wonderful thing to keep reusing. Reusable razor, that's a no-brainer, using a reusable razor. I mean, plastic razors, you're heaving them into the ocean every day. Cloth rags instead of paper towels. A lot of times when I use the restroom and I wash my hands, positively I'm not using a paper towel. And if they don't have an air dryer, I wipe my hands on my pants. If I don't have to shake somebody's hand, I go out. That's it. Cloth rags, so that's a no-brainer. Palm-free products, of course, I want all my shampoos and soaps and toothbrush not to have any sort of palm oil in it at all. This is easy to do, gang. This is important to go through when furnishing your home. You have to realize anytime you buy anything new, any wood, it's loaded with toxic chemicals. I've had a lot of people that their children, they got them the cribs and all that, had horrible rashes and everything. And I said, well, did you just buy them a new crib or did you have that room just painted? And they said, yes. It's the toxic chemicals in there. So be conscious of that. Be conscious of disposable items. You need to be careful, especially with light bulbs that have mercury and things like that. So these are just basic things. I think mowing your lawn is the funniest thing in the world because it's so interesting that we have lawns instead of gardens or zero-scape. I mean, it's just such a waste of water. Chemical use, it's so interesting. I go to people's homes all the time. They'd eat 100% organic and they live like a monk. And then you look in their home and they have tons and tons of pesticides and contaminations in there. I mean, would you allow somebody to take Raid and spray it on your salad? I mean, these are deadly things, these poisons. They get into your skin, you start breathing and inhaling it, they're toxins. So recycled paper, I buy my paper that's 100% recycled or made out of sugar cane. And I can buy it right at Kinko's, made out of sugar cane, so I don't have to waste. And then, of course, I'm huge into reducing energy. Every time I'm at somebody's house, I'm always shutting lights off. 100% of the time that I ever turn on a faucet, I look at that water for a second, I shut it off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, fresh, clean water at my fingertips. I can't even believe it. I think of the people in Africa and India who are drinking water that's filled with absolute dirt and feces. And we have clean water here. You bet I'm going to be respectful of that water. I'm not going to use any more than I need to. Okay? All right, so let's talk about what my whole life is based on is activism. This is what I want. I hope you got a little bit out of what we talked about. It makes you think. But this is where you really got to get going, okay? Because Alice Walker said it best. Activism is my rent for living on the planet. This is critical. It is your responsibility. You have to do it. You have to be an activist. Just like you got to take care of your parents and take care of your family, take care of your home, you got to take care of your planet. You got to take care of Earth. So everything you do every day, you got to do something to hold a sign up for the planet and stand for the planet and try to protect that planet from harm. So what do I do as an activist? Okay, I'm just going to tell, I thought I would show you some things that I do because a lot of people don't know. So I do go as many podcasts as I can get on. Anytime I can get on podcasts, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to tell the host, no, I don't want to talk about fitness. No, I don't want to talk about nutrition. I want to talk about love and compassion, and I want to talk about the environment. I'm going to get that message out there no matter what I do. I'm going to fight to get that message out there. Now, Living with Harmony goes to restaurants. And what we do is we approach a restaurant. We say, John Pierre will do a seminar for you for free. You can charge your participants $25 and you keep all the money. Living with Harmony will take nothing. Why do we do that? Well, we want to ask that restaurant, would you be willing to take palm oil out of your products here? Would you be willing to not use styrofoam? Living with Harmony will pay for compostable containers for you. We will pay for that out of our own money. Would you be interested in having a plant-based option instead of having all meat here? I'll gladly lecture at your restaurant, but would you put a vegan menu on there? Could you get rid of straws and carry out containers and bags? And could you add more locally grown or organic products? So that's my activism. I don't get paid for that. I'm putting all my time and effort into that because that's my contribution back to nature. Because that's only one restaurant, but that's a lot of clients coming through that restaurant every hour. I consult with many different companies. I've worked in the natural products industry since actually as about when I became a vegan, 82 or 83. So a lot of these companies, this one's so delicious that I consult with, and I get them to get rid of plastic. So I want them to use things that are made out of sugar cane. It was interesting. I was recently with a big company, and they said to me, what's the main thing your clients want now? And I said, my clients, it has nothing to do with your product. It has to do with your packaging. I said, my clients do not want packaged plastic. They want environmentally friendly things. So a lot of these companies I've consulted with, some of these coconut companies, coconut water, I tell them I want your coconut to be monkey-free. And they're like, what's monkey-free? I said, well, they take baby monkeys and they steal them from their families and they train them to climb coconut trees and pick coconuts for them. And they chain them at the neck. I said, if you want me to support your coconut company, I want those practices changed. This particular company had milk products, milk protein in their drinks. I said, no, and I consulted with them on change. These other companies up on top, a natural savory bar had honey, and I said, I want you to use a different sweetener. I said, date paste would be great. I'd rather have agave nectar. I said, anything but honey. Same thing with the other company here. So all these different companies I consult with for free, most of them, so I can just do my activism. Now, many of you know these organizations here. Not only do I train the founders, so I want to make sure the people who run these organizations are in the best shape of their life, because they're vegan doesn't mean anything to me. They need to be healthy vegans, and they also need to make sure they're doing environmentally friendly living. So not only do I train the founders, but I also train the staff. So I do a lot of training for the staff to introduce to them about planet-based living. Of course, I make different videos with Chef AJ, with Dr. Carrie Saunders, so I do as much education as I can. I could care less if I ever make a penny from any of these things, as long as I just get this message out. There's some great videos out there. Many of you have seen Unity or Earthlings. Not only do I consult with them, but here's Sean Munson, the director, creator of Earthlings, and that's Joaquin Phoenix, who narrated, both of who I work with. Unity I consulted on. Eating You Alive I was in. You can see me training Sean Munson on the top. He came to me 6'2", 165 pounds, and I built him up to 215 pounds of solid muscle on a vegan diet. He became a vegan Frankenstein. Why did I do it? Because I wanted to make sure that he became as healthy and fit as he could, so he can be the best representative to promote veganism and planet-based living. Here's Rami. Came to me close to 500 pounds. World sumo and judo champion. Amazing guy. I said to him, you know, it's great you're the world sumo and judo champion, but you have a son and you want to be able to throw a ball with him when he's in high school, so I want you to live. Became vegan. After a couple months of becoming vegan, then he became an animal activist. Why do I do that? Because this is a world-class athlete, one of the best in the world, and now he's going to carry that message out more than I can with Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So this is why I do that. That's my activism. You don't have to do that, but you can do some activism. Now, in Colorado, we rescue a lot of these turtles and animals that have been abused. They're in little schools. They're in a cage this big, turtles, and their beaks are worn off from bumping into the glass, and their nails are gone from trying to get out. So we educate the schools about that. We rescue the turtles or whatever animal it is, and we take them in, and it's very costly. They're very expensive to take care of. One vet visit can be $800 for a turtle. We have all these animals here that are rescued. The cat's paralyzed. She has to have her bladder expressed manually up on top. Nobody wanted her. Who can express your bladder manually? You have to be trained to do that. Her vet bills are astronomical. She needs massage and acupuncture. But she's just as important as anyone else. I volunteer. We plant berries for the bears in Colorado so they don't keep coming down to town and people want to shoot them. We want to give them food. We're encroaching on their environment. So get out there and help some of these organizations. We make cookies for different organizations that are palm-free. So we make them. Now, if you look at our cookies are in the recyclable bags, and other people made things that are with saran wrap. So we make sure we educate people about that. If you take a look at what we do, we have a message on them too. So we make sure that there's some sort of message explaining palm oil and how bad it is. Yeah, sure, it's cookies. It'd be great if it was fruit. But, you know, you're doing fundraisers for these rabbit societies and things like that. We run the Colorado Pet Pantry, so that's for the homeless and low income. We do that because all the food, remember this, all that dog food and pet food that gets damaged gets thrown in the dumpster and then goes in the landfill. What a waste, not only financially, but damaging the environment with all the methane that will be created. So we go to the homeless shelters and we give it to people who have pets because they can't afford it. It takes a lot of work. Thank you. And some of you have been with me before. I know Teresa Passy has, and you see it takes a lot of work loading up your truck and loading it and then being out there and stuff. Now, here's one of the causes that's really close to me, and this is Project Child Safe. This is an organization most of them are Navy SEALs, and their job is to go into brothels around the country that are outside of our country, though, and to rescue children that have been kidnapped and put into sex trafficking. The children are as young as 3 years of age. So what do? Well, I don't break the door downs and steal the kid. That's not something I could do physically or emotionally, or I'm not trained in that. So I do my very best to help any way I can. So what I do is I collect toys. I go make it my business to get as many toy donations as I can, because when those soldiers are in camouflage and helmets and guns and vests, children are scared. There's explosions. They're shooting. If they show them the toy, the child knows they're being rescued. So I get as many toys as I can for these kids. Then I get the kids' shoes. Many of these kids do not have any shoes at all. So we get them shoes. I get donations of shoes. It takes a lot of time, but you know what takes a lot more than time is that it takes room to store all this stuff. I get the kids vegan candy bars and vegan snacks because when they get rescued, they're all malnourished and starving, so we try to give them something that we can. For the team members, the Navy SEALs, I get them products so they can create healthy smoothies and be healthy throughout the year because I want them to be able to perform as good as they can. And then as you saw, our water bottles, when they're running through the jungles, they scoop up water, and they've told me this before. They said, JP, it's been a lifesaver, those bottles you got me, because what they do is they go into the jungles, they scoop in a river or a stream, and they squeeze it, because there's another one that you can squeeze, right into the kid's mouth. So you need to understand that when you do volunteerism, it doesn't have to just be, people think, do you just help the planet or just help animals? No, we help humanity. You know, this is Ty Ritter. He's the founder of it. He's been shot 8 times, chopped in the face with a machete, gigantic scar, 7 different surgeries, but he keeps coming. He just keeps coming. He won't back down. He's going to rescue as many kids as he can. And his last rescue, one of the last rescues they did, he said to me, JP, he goes, we rescued these children, and it's hard for me to even say it, but I remember I was crying because of you. And the reason why it was because of me is because I went and solicited donations. I did seminars, and I said, seminars $25, 100% of that money goes to Project SolSave. So Ty Ritter is a good friend of mine, and I really appreciate the work he's done. So one of the things you want to do is support different organizations that are environmentally friendly. I don't use the normal, I'm not sure what is it called, the browser? So I use Ecosia, which every time that you use their site, they plant trees. So it's a search engine, yes, thank you, search engine. So I use Ecosia. Just go to ecosia.com or .org? Yeah, and then you change your, I think it's called change your browser. So I hope that you get a better understanding that what we try to teach here just isn't about diet. It's not just about fitness. It is at the core about love and compassion, but not only towards yourself, but it's about love and compassion to your fellow human beings, your fellow animals, your fellow insects, your fellow plants, and the earth. Because this is Mother Earth. Without the earth, we don't exist. So I want you to just remember one saying, and again, it was from Dr. Clapper. I want you to put it into your brain that when you throw something away, I want you to think, where is away? Because I think if you start thinking about that, you're going to be more conscientious about the choices that you make. Does that make sense? And if you could just do 2 easy things is, 1, just get your own water bottle. Because every time you come to a conference here, just fill your water bottle up and back instead of using a plastic glass, right? And then heaving the glass. Just use that water. That's fine. And when you go shopping, just do your very best to bring your own bags and then put your produce in that bag. Okay, and then you don't have the plastic waste. Does that make sense? Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Chef AJ and Charles.
Thank you, JP. Let him hear it. Standing O. Yes, thank you so much. Wow. Just amazing.